How to play Fingerstyle or Fingerpicking Guitar, Book 2, Lesson 9. How to play Vals or Waltz by Bartolomé Calatayud. If you've just stumbled across this lesson or you found it through a search, you might need the tab that goes with the lesson, in which case you can get it completely free as a PDF at www.ebooks4guitar.com, and it's in Book 2 of the Fingerstyle Guitar course. Both Book 1 and Book 2 are completely free. And if you'd like to go through the previous lessons, I've put the links to a playlist containing all the lessons in Book 1 and Book 2 down below in the description. Before learning how to play this tune, here it is being played through. Let's start by looking at an overview of the whole tune. The first thing to point out is that the tune is 3/4 time, which is 3 crotchet beats per bar, and this is standard waltz time. And the tempo can be anything from 120 beats per minute to 140 beats per minute, or you could even extend it as far as 160 beats per minute. But if you're starting the tune from scratch, you'll probably struggle to get to the 120 beat per minute mark, so don't worry about trying to get it too quick. At the top of the page, we've got some notes, and these are all things we've covered previously in the course, but here's some reminders just in case. And the first one is the slide symbol. Then we've got DC al coda, which means go to the top of the page and then jump out to the coda when instructed. After that, we've got like a target sign, which tells us where to jump from for the coda and where to jump to for the coda. Finally, we've got NH, which stands for natural harmonic. And if you need to do a tutorial on that, it was in Book 1, Lesson 22. I'll put the link to that down below in the description. But we will recap these techniques as you're learning the tune. Right, let's continue the overview, taking a closer look at the tablature. The first thing I noticed when looking at the tune as a whole is that there's no complicated fingering or bar chords or anything that might cause you difficulty. So anyone of virtually any level should be able to learn this tune. You just have to be patient with yourself and learn it at your own speed. You'll notice the double line at the end of the first page, which helps us recognise the fact that this is made of 2 themes. The first theme is the first page and the second theme is the second page, so it's slightly different. Regarding the order of play, you just play straight through the whole tune until you get to the DC al coda, and when you see this, you go back to the very beginning and then you play through the first 3 lines and halfway through the 4th line, and when you reach the 2 coda symbol, you jump to the coda, which is the last 2 bars. So you can see the order of play is quite simple once it's been explained. And once you've gone through it yourself a couple of times, it really is simple. Right, let's learn how to play this tune. How to play Vals by Bartolomé Calatayud. Right, let's take a look at the first line of tablature, which repeats on the third line. And as with most pieces of music, there's a pattern you can learn first to help you play all the way through the tune. So the first basic pattern is primary annular pinched, then index middle blocked and index middle blocked again. And this is what that sounds like with a 2-bar introduction. Remembering it's 3/4 time, so each bar has 3 beats in it. Obviously, at the moment we're just playing open strings, and this is so you can concentrate on the finger picking hand. If you want to play along, here that is again at 120 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. And here that is again one last time. Right, let's change that finger picking pattern very slightly, and what we're doing this time is, rather than playing the pinch and the 2 blocks in the second bar, we're playing a pinch with the primary and annular finger, but then we're playing the top E string with the annular finger twice. Here that is being played with a 2-bar introduction. And here that is being played again at 120 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction, in case you want to try and play along. And here that is again one last time. Hopefully those exercises have got you warmed up and ready to play the first line. And you'll notice that of the first line, you've already learned half of it, because that exercise is the same as the first bar and the last bar, where you just use the finger picking pattern with no fingers in place. So let's jump straight on to bar 2 and 3. And the reason I'm covering the 2 bars is because the slide overlaps from bar 2 to bar 3, so we really need to cover both bars at the same time. Looking more closely at bar 2, we simply pinch the bottom E string and the top E string using the primary and annular finger, and then we play the 2nd fret and the 3rd fret using the annular finger. So it looks like this. Here that is one more time in case you want to try and play along with it, but we'll move on quite quickly so you can learn both bars together, as they make more sense that way. Right, let's take a look at the slide. And the slide goes from the 3rd fret to the 7th fret, and you'll keep the same finger in place and slide that finger along. And you'll notice that the slide hasn't got a slur line over it, and this makes a big difference to the way you play it, because if it hasn't got a slur line, you'll play the first note and the last note. So to play that slide, I'll play the 3rd fret with the 2nd finger, then I'll slide that finger up to the 7th fret and I'll play it again. If you feel you need to, pause the video here and just practice that technique. And once you're happy with the slide, bring in the pinch so you're playing the bottom E string at the same time as you're playing the 7th fret from the slide. Once you've got that technique, you're ready to bring together the whole of the verse line. So it sounds like this. Here that is again at 120 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction, so you can try and play along with it. And here that is again, one last time. Let's move on to the second line, which is more or less the same as the 4th line and is the same as the 5th line. And the first bar of the second line introduces a partial B7th chord. Now, normally we'd finger the B7th like this, with the first finger on the 1st fret. However, because we're not playing this note, we'll move the first finger to the 2nd fret of the A string, and we'll use the 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G string and the 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the top E string. So it looks like this. And the advantage of fingering it this way is that it leaves the 4th finger free to play the 3rd fret on the top E string in the 2nd bar of the 2nd line. So, applying the finger picking pattern to this, those 2 bars look and sound like this. Here that is again at 120 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction, in case you want to try and play along. And here that is again. The 3rd bar of the second line is identical to the 1st bar and the 4th bar. However, this time, I'd recommend you keep the 1st finger in place right the way through this line. And that's because in the last bar of line 2, you'll use that note again, the 2nd fret of the A string. Here's the whole of line 2 being played, but just watch the 1st finger for now. Hopefully you'll notice I didn't have to move that 1st finger, which made the 2nd line easier and smoother to play. Here that is again with a 2-bar introduction at 120 beats per minute. Try and play along if you think you're ready. And here that is again, one last time. Right, hopefully now you can bring line 1 and 2 together. So let's try that. Here's line 1 and 2 being played with a 2-bar introduction at 120 beats per minute. And here that is again at the same speed. Once once you can play line 1 and 2, you can already play line 2 and 3 because they're identical apart from the last bar, where you simply pinch the bottom of the top E string with the primary and the annular finger. Here then is the first 4 lines being played. Just listen through for the first time. You might want to pause the video here and practice that for a few minutes. But when you're ready, here's that being played again at 120 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction, so you can try and play along. And here that is again, one last time. Once you're happy with page 1, we'll move on to page 2. And if you look more closely at the first line of page 2, you'll notice it's identical to the second line of the first page. So obviously we don't need to learn this line. We'll move on then to line 2, and we'll start with the first 2 bars of line 2. And looking at them, they're quite a lot different to anything we've played so far. In the first bar, we play the first fret on the B string with the first finger and the second fret on the G string with the second finger. And we play these using the blocking technique, so it looks like this. I'm sure you'll agree this is easy to play, so we'll move on to bar 2 of line 2, where we start the bar with the same shape. However, then we move on to the 3rd fret on the B string and the 4th fret on the G string. And there's 2 ways of playing this. The first way is just to do a silent slide of the 1st and 2nd finger, like this. The second way is to play the 3rd fret with the 3rd finger and the 4th fret with the 4th finger, like this. You can pause the video here and try both techniques. However, most people I've taught prefer the first technique. But if you use this technique, remember to use silent slides. So when you play it, it isn't obvious you're sliding between the 2 fingering positions. Here that is again, so you can look and listen to how it's done. Bars 3 and 4 of this line are easy because you've already covered them, because they're identical to bars 3 and 4 of line 2 on page 1. So let's bring together line 2 of page 2. Here's how that looks and sounds first before you try it. You might want to pause the lesson here and try that a couple of times. But when you're ready, here it is at 120 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. And here that is again, one last time. Let's move on to line 3 of page 2, where you've already learnt the first bar, as it's played on that simplified B7th shape. However, this time, looking at the second bar, rather than adding the fourth finger, we remove the third finger to expose the open top E string. So here's what the first 2 bars of the third line of page 2 look like. And here that is again, in case you want to try and play along with it. The last 2 bars of this line are very easy. In fact, the only fretted note is the third note on the top E string. So it's actually easier to learn this line as a complete line. So you can see and hear how that line should be played. Here it is with a 2-bar introduction. And here that is again with a 2-bar introduction at 120 beats per minute, in case you want to try playing along. And here that is one last time. Right, let's move on to line 4 of page 2, which is completely different to anything else you've played in this tune. And the first bar can be fingered as a partial C major, or a complete C if you prefer. But unlike the rest of the tune, the double stops are being played on the B string and the top E string, using the middle finger and the annular finger. This is what that looks and sounds like. Anyone who's following the course would find that really easy, because we've done that exact pattern numerous times in the course. Even though that is really easy, here it is with a 2-bar introduction, so you can play along with it. And here it is again. The last 3 bars of this line are all single notes that are picked with the primary finger or the thumb. And to learn these 3 bars, it's really just a case of following the tablature. Here's the last 3 bars of the 4th line of page 2 being played through. Let's bring that together with the first bar and play the entire of the 4th line of the 2nd page. I'll play it through first, so you can either watch how it's done, or you can play along if you think you're ready. Here that is again with a 2-bar introduction at 120 beats per minute. Try and play along if you think you can. And here that is again with the 2-bar introduction. Just as a side note, because it's not in the score, a lot of classical guitarists slow this section down and quieten it down slightly because it gives a good emotional response. At the end of this line, we hit the da capo al coda, which means we go right the way back to the beginning. So, straight after playing the last bar, you play a pinched, open bottom E string and open top E string. So when practicing this line, it's a good idea to add those two notes so you get used to the flow. Conveniently, the coda starts on those two notes, so whilst you wouldn't normally play through to the coda, I'd recommend you do so whilst you're practicing until you start putting the tune into order. Before we try that, let's just go through the coda. The coda starts with the pinched top E string and bottom E string. However, you'll notice on the bottom E string there's a slur line and another 0 in brackets. And this just tells us that the bottom E string is ringing on. You'll also notice there's 3 12s in diamonds or boxes on their sides. And above those is an NH with the dotted line. And this tells us those are natural harmonics. If you've never covered those, I've done a whole lesson on them that you'll really need to go through. So I'll put the link to that down below in the description. But if you have covered them before and you just need a quick recap, what we'd actually do is just touch the string directly above the 12th fret and pluck it, and then pull our finger away as quickly as we can, and the note will ring on. And you want to do this on the G string, on the B string, and on the top E string. So here's what the coda looks like being played. You might need to pause the video and practice that for a moment, but if you're ready, here it is being played with a 2-bar introduction at 120 beats per minute. Right, let's try and bring together the whole of the second page, just played right the way through, ignoring the da capo for the moment. Here that is again at 120 beats per minute. Try and play along if you think you're ready. For this next bit, you might need to pause the video and practice for a bit, or come back at another date, because we'll try playing the entire tune all the way through, ignoring the da capo, at 120 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. If you manage to play that, and if you're up for a challenge, let's play it again at 140 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction. But don't worry if you're not ready yet. This is just for anyone who fancies a challenge. Here that is again, one last time, at 140 beats per minute with a 2-bar introduction, but this time we'll follow the instructions where it says da capo, we'll go back to the beginning, and then where it says to the coda, we'll go to the coda. I've put metronome beats at the end of this video for anyone who wants to keep practicing, and they're at 120 beats per minute, 130 beats per minute and 140 beats per minute. And to answer a question I get asked a lot, the reason I use a steel strum guitar during the lesson, even though I'd normally play this on a nylon strum guitar, is because my steel strum guitar has got clear fret markers, so it's easier for people watching the video to follow what I'm doing. This lesson went on way longer than I thought it was going to go on, so I'll conclude now. But thank you very much for watching, and a real special thanks for anyone who's watched to the end. And if you need the tablature for this tune, you can find it at www.ebooks4guitar.com, and it's completely free in PDF form, and this is in book 2 of the Fingerstyle guitar course. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like, and if you haven't done already, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. So until the next video, bye for now.